Welcome to Chess to Impress, and today we're going to talk about En-passant. There are three special moves in chess. Can you tell me what are they? Of course, it is castling, it is pawn promotion, and the third one is En-passant. En-passant means in passing in the French language. It is a special move only pawns can do against other pawns. It is black to move in this position. What will happen if black plays the move c6? If black plays the move c6, of course, it's super easy. It's a very big mistake, and even a beginner can figure this out that if pawn moves to c6, which is one square up, you can simply capture it, and eventually you push your pawn to c7 and then to c8. You pawn promote, make a queen, and win the game. But what will happen if they try to pass by white's pawn by playing it to c5? Right now in this position, the black pawn was successfully able to pass by playing the move c5, right? It just passed white's pawn. They played the move c5. So what can white play? Whenever your opponent moves its pawn two squares up, and when you have a pawn right next to it, you can en-passant. Your pawn captures the way it usually does. It goes one square diagonally. Now take a look at this magic, right? They played their pawns two squares up. The number two is super important. Whenever they move their pawn two squares up, you can simply make this pawn disappear by the special move en-passant, right? It's like Harry Potter stuff. The pawn on c5 disappears. Okay, let's take a look at position number two again. Now we have this pawn on d5. If they play a move like c5, we can make this pawn disappear by playing d captures c6. The pawn on d5 goes to c6. Also, let's say our pawn is on b5 now. Okay, and if they play a move like a5, we can make this pawn disappear because the pawn moved two squares up. Two squares, remember. Right? Even if they play c5, it is completely our choice. We can make this pawn on c5 disappear with the pawn on b5, or we can make this pawn disappear with the pawn on d5. It is completely our choice. Whenever they go two squares up and you have two pawns right next to that pawn, you can use either one of the two. All right, let's take a look at position number three. Super important. Can white play en-passant after black plays pawn to f4? The answer is no. It cannot en-passant. It only works when the pawn is pushed two squares at once. In the following position, the pawn moved just one square. Whenever your opponent's pawn goes one square or moves one square, you cannot en-passant. Position number four, white plays the move f4, and if you just take a look at this position, there are no escape squares for the king on rank number 6 because of the rook. There are no escape squares for the king on e4 and d5 because of the bishop on h1. And there is no square for the king to go to f4 because the e3 square protects the f4 pawn. The e3 pawn protects the f4 pawn. But we still have a saving grace. We can still save the king from a checkmate. Remember, their pawn moved two squares up, so we can simply en-passant. En-passant saves the king from a checkmate, but it costs us a rook. But that's okay. As long as we are able to save the checkmate, that is fine, right? So remember, their pawn moved two squares up, and we simply en-passant. All right. Position number five. White can white play en-passant here after black plays g5? Right? Imagine black played the move g5. Can white en-passant? Yes, of course white can en-passant. But should white en-passant? They cannot They can en-passant, but it is not a good idea to en-passant because if you en-passant, the black rook will capture your rook, right? So it is completely your choice. If it's good for you, please do en-passant. If it's not good for you, then there's no point in en-passing the opponent's pawn, right? They move two squares. If you do so, the f file opens up and you end up losing your rook. So be careful. En-passants may not be good always. And the last position, right? In this position, uh, what happened is White played the move knight to e6, and white gives a discovered check. The correct move would have been to go king h7, but even this is bad because if black goes king h7, queen g7 is a checkmate. So black decided to play g5, and this is a bad move because en-passant will result in a checkmate. So en-passant is when your opponent's pawn moves two squares up, and your pawn simply captures it by moving one square diagonally, as we always do on the song, right? So be careful. If it's good for you, do on the song. If it's not good for you, do not. Thank you so much.